There are mornings when you wake up and feel like there's no empty space left in your head. Not because you have too much to do, but because there are too many things you haven't been able to let go of. An old comment, a fear that hasn't even happened, something you should have done differently. It's all there, stacked on top of each other, silent, but heavy. You still go to work, you still eat, you still laugh and talk, but inside, there's a room that's always full. The problem isn't that life is too loud. It's that your mind has never been cleaned out. To understand this better, listen to the story of a man who spent his entire life living in a room filled with stones. In a valley nestled between low, rolling hills, there was a man named Elias. He lived alone in a small wooden cabin at the edge of the forest. His life was simple. Out in the morning, he walked to the stream to fetch water. At noon, he worked in the fields. At night, he lit a fire and cooked his dinner. Everything was enough. But Elias had a strange habit. Inside his house, there was a small, windowless room. At first, it was used to store old things: a broken chair, a cracked picture frame, a few chipped porcelain vases. One day, after an argument with an old friend, Elias carried a stone into that room. He told himself he would keep it to remember what had happened. A few weeks later, when a harvest didn't turn out the way he'd hoped, he brought another stone into the room. Then, when he replayed an old mistake in his mind, he placed yet another one inside. Each stone fit in his hand. He could hold it. It had real weight. At first, there was still plenty of space in the room. Elias stacked the stones in one corner, but over time, they began to multiply. Small ones, large ones, smooth ones, sharp-edged ones. Every time he felt sad, he added a stone. Every time he felt anxious, he added a stone. Every time he blamed himself, he added a stone. He never threw them away. He kept them, because he believed that if he let them go, it would mean he no longer remembered. And if he no longer remembered, he might repeat the mistake. And so the room slowly filled up. Stones pressed against the walls. Stones piled on top of each other. Stones covered the entire floor. Some nights, Elias would wake up suddenly. He could hear the faint sound of stones shifting as the wind slipped through the cracks in the door. A dry sound. Cold. He began avoiding that room altogether. But he knew it was there, inside his own house. One day, while walking along the edge of the forest, Elias met an old gardener tending to young apple trees. The old man worked slowly. Each swing of the hoe was gentle, every step steady. Elias stopped and watched. The old man asked him what was weighing down his face like a stone. Elias let out an awkward laugh. He didn't know how to answer. And then, for reasons he couldn't explain, he began talking about the room in his house, about the stones, about how he couldn't stop bringing more of them inside. The old man listened in silence. He didn't interrupt. When Elias finished speaking, the old man asked a short question. "What is that room for?" Elias hesitated. "To store the things I don't want to forget." The old man looked him straight in the eye. "And now, who is it storing?" Elias didn't understand. Because the old man set his hoe down. "When the stones fill the room, is there any space left for you to stand?" The question left Elias speechless. That night, he went home and opened the door to the small room. A damp, dusty smell rose into the air. The stones lay there in silence, stacked on top of each other like a gray wall. He tried stepping inside. The tip of his foot hit a stone. There was no space left. He suddenly realized it had been a long time since he last stepped in there. Not because he forgot, but because there was no room left for him. The next morning, Elias went back to see the old man. "What am I supposed to do with those stones?" he asked. The old man pointed to a large tree nearby. Beneath it, the soil was soft and loose. "Bring one stone out here," he said. Elias did as he was told. He chose a stone that felt moderate in size. Not too big, not too small. It was the stone from the time he had spoken carelessly to his younger brother. The old man told him to dig a small hole, place the stone inside, then cover it with soil. Elias looked surprised. "That's it?" The old man nodded. "You don't have to keep everything inside your house. Some things are meant to be held by the earth." Elias fell silent. "But what if I forget?" he asked. The old man smiled. "You won't forget. You just won't have to carry it inside your room anymore." That afternoon, Elias carried another stone out of his house, then another one. One stone each day. He didn't rush. He didn't dig the holes too deep, just enough to place the stone inside and cover it back up. Each time, he stood still for a few seconds, watching the ground settle flat again, taking one slow breath. At first, he felt a strange emptiness, as if he were losing something important. Those stones had been in that room for years. They were familiar. Some days, he hesitated. Some days, he held a stone in his hands for a long time before he was ready to set it down. But in the end, he still dug the soil, still placed it in the ground. 1 week passed, then 2. The small room in his house began to reveal open spaces. Light from the crack in the door spilled onto the floor. The air felt less suffocating. Elias stepped inside and stood in the middle of the room. For the first time in years, he could stretch out his arms without touching a single stone. He didn't throw them all away. A few stones still sat in the corner of the room. But he was no longer afraid of them. One afternoon, as he carried the last stone from the corner outside, Elias turned to the old man and asked, "Why did I have to do this myself? Why didn't you help me carry them out faster?" The old man replied softly, "Because every stone belongs to you. If I carried them away for you, the room would fill up again." Elias understood. That night, he sat in the empty room. There was no sound of stones shifting, no heavy, damp smell, just quiet space. He realized something simple. The stones hadn't magically disappeared. They were still lying beneath that tree, but they no longer took up space inside his home. And when the room was empty, he was able to place other things inside. A small table, a lamp, a hand-woven rug. The room that had once been packed with stones became the place where he sat every evening. Not to think, not to regret, just to breathe. Now think about the room inside you. Maybe you're holding on to stones too. An old memory, a mistake, a fear that hasn't even arrived. You keep them because you're afraid of forgetting, afraid of repeating the past, because you believe holding on means being responsible. But if they fill the entire room, where will you stand? Tonight, don't try to clear everything out. Just choose one small stone, one thought that keeps replaying the most. Close your eyes. Picture it in your hand. Feel its weight. Then imagine stepping onto a patch of soft earth. Dig a small hole. Place the stone inside. Cover it back up. You're not erasing the past. You're simply moving it out of your room. Take one slow breath. Notice the space that just opened up. That space is not loss. That space is where you get to live. And when the room inside you has space, your mind will no longer feel like a cramped place filled with stones. It will become a quiet space you can walk into anytime without bumping into what's already gone. Sometimes, changing your life doesn't come from adding something new. It comes from having the courage to clear out what's old. The room is still there. And now, finally, there's space for you in it.